often asked what it takes to put a concert on, and what better way to tell the story of what it's like backstage than to interview the people who actually do the work. So I'd like to welcome you all here today in this unique behind-the-scenes look. I think you'll find it fascinating, and you might not go to a concert and sit there in the same way once you see that stage.
It's a team of 5, including myself, for any given rehearsal or performance. We also have a couple of people who sub in and out depending on what our needs are. And then in addition to that, there's staff. And so there's probably at least 30 people who are involved in any rehearsal. To set up the stage, it usually takes about 45 minutes. We set it up 3 or 4 times a week, so we're pretty efficient at it. It goes from setting up all the chairs, setting up all the stands. We actually work from what we call a plot, sort of a picture of where all the instruments go that the stage managers create. The challenges of being the production manager are that you are responsible basically for all of the logistics of getting instruments on and off stage, but also getting them into the building, dealing with all of the various rentals that we have throughout the season. There are lots of concerts that have a special instrument that we don't have on site all the time. The production manager also manages the crew themselves, so it's a lot of scheduling people and making sure that you have the right number of people for any given task. So the orchestra and the chorus and the classical campers program and Project Inclusion, which is our youth apprentice program, all of those things have needs on any given day, and so it's a matter of deciding when those things need to happen, what kind of crew you need to have for each of those setups, and making sure that you prioritize throughout the day what setups need to happen when. So all of those logistics are part of what the production manager does.
We're currently in the percussion room where they keep all of the percussion instruments. We are responsible for taking them from this storage space and placing them on stage in the specific format for the musicians.
When you're the ASM, your basic big deal is to handle percussion for the stage manager. So Eric, he's the percussion guy for us. He sends us the plots and we space it out basically how he has it. We always know that the timpani is going to be center with maestro, and then pretty much everything else is going to go how Eric wants us to set it up, and then we deal with space issues and all that stuff.
So to determine which piece on how the orchestra is set up, the librarian actually provides us with a breakdown of the instrumentation for each grouping. So we'll know based off of this particular piece that the Shostakovich piece has 16 players, and it's kind of broken down between each section. And then we create a plot. This is a really complicated plot. As you can see, the stage is completely full. But our first violins are always going to be in this section here, and our second violins are going to be here. So that's typically how we can do it. Our duties during a performance and during rehearsals are, once we have the stage set, we stand by to make any adjustments that the musicians might need, and to and address any issues that they might have. We also manage the timings of the concerts themselves.
Because we have, is it WFMT? Mm-hmm. WFMT, the radio station. They're going to also be recording tonight's performance, so our job would be to make sure they have the timings, they know what's going on, and then
so there's no dead space on the radio,
yeah.
And keeping them in the loop as well. Other than that, we stand by to just be a supportive element while the musicians are playing.
I actually worked for the Grand Park Music Festival before they came to Millennium Park, so that would have been 2002, I think. I started as one of the sound people. The audio system is unique here. It sounds good basically everywhere in the venue because the designer of the system paid really close attention to coverage. Pulaski Acoustics and Frank Gehry, the architect, worked out kind of a revolutionary concept to have a system that would allow speakers to be suspended overhead without individual poles in the lawn. And the trellis system and a lot of the architectural decisions really help the coverage issue. And the coverage is always the number one thing that sound engineers fight in venues like this. You're never really any farther than 75 feet, always within the operational parameters of that loudspeaker. And the speakers are actually delayed scientifically at the speed of sound, so that as the sound would travel acoustically, the next set of speakers will pick up the sound from that point onward. So yeah, every speaker in the venue, literally every speaker, has some form of delay on it that focuses right back onto the dead center of the performance area. It's one of the few venues in the United States, particularly in an outdoor setting, that has a layer system, which is A set of speakers, processors, and microphones that operate independently from the sound reinforcement system. It picks the orchestra up directly and then processes that sound and provides the sound of a room from various loudspeakers in a circumference around the venue. So the very quiet dynamics to the very loud dynamics would be hard to reproduce in an outdoor setting anywhere else. There's nothing like it still here in the States. It's very well designed.
Well, I became the librarian here in 2000. I had been a music librarian for another orchestra in town called the Chicago Sinfonietta, and I first began working as a librarian in college at Indiana University. I just helped out in the music library. But when this job came open, I thought it sounded interesting, and it is. It's an interesting job. It's an important job. We're indispensable here to make sure all the music gets out to the right people. The festival would crash and burn if they didn't have a music librarian. I got that cow poster out of the alley behind my house, and added an inflatable cow, and then we added the rooster up there, and so yeah, it just kind of came together. I have to start early in February before the season starts, trying to figure out where to get the music, because we rent a lot of the pieces. A lot of 20th century pieces can only be rented. And then I start ordering the music as soon as the programs have been completely set. So I start getting music in March or sometimes even late February, and start to work going through it. And then I have to send the principal string players all get the parts to put their bowings in. We get those parts back, and we have to copy all of the bowings, which is what I'm doing right now. The major job of the music librarian is to make sure that all of the music gets to the right players at the right time, and to make sure that there are as few problems in rehearsal with the music as there can be. A lot of reprints come with lots and lots of mistakes. We have to mark cuts, we might mark repeats, we mark bowing certainly, so that all the string players are bowing the same direction.
Right now I'm working on the cello parts for Stravinsky's Symphony in 3 Movements. I'm putting bowings in so that they match the principal's bowings, so that the whole section can have the same directions.
What sort of markings are you putting in the score?
So this down marking is like half of a rectangle, and then the up bow marking is like a little V.
Why is it important that they all bow the same way?
I mean, just visually for the audience, it's more impressive to see all the bows going in the same directions, and sonically also it makes a difference with how the music sounds.
That's great. Well, thank you for your time.
I've been doing personnel for about 18 years. I've been with Grant Park for 3 years, and primarily the job is to let the personnel in the orchestra know when to be at rehearsals, what to wear at rehearsals, and what the rehearsal order is going to be. And then I create the roster and then just post that on the walls. The problems are if your first flute player is stuck in traffic, or their child is sick or been rushed to the emergency room, then I have to fill the first flute player, who's just one person and nobody else really knows her part. And I have to ask the assistant principal flute player, or let her know that she's going to have to cover for the principal player. And then I also tune the orchestra in rehearsals. But the concertmaster will walk on stage and he'll point to the oboe player, and then he'll hold up 3 fingers. It's kind of like a catcher in baseball. And that'll indicate that he wants 3 A's, 3 tuning notes. So 1 for the brass, 1 for the winds, and 1 for the strings. Then it's quiet. The concertmaster sits down, and they send the conductor on stage, and the concert begins. Many orchestras have what they call fixed strings. That means that if you are 7th chair, you stay 7th chair for life. Many orchestras have moved away from that model and now do what they call string rotation. And so 1st chair and 2nd chair, they're fixed. They're not going to move at all. This week, 3rd chair will be here. Next week, this person is going to move back to 5th chair, and then back to 7, and then back to 9. And then that person will move over to number 10, and then they'll move up to 8, then to 6, then to 4, and then they'll just move around that rotation. One good reason is if you're sitting here in number 3, you're very close to the conductor, and this is a very exciting place to be. If you sit way in the back, you feel very distant from everything. It's a nice thing to just rotate.
I'm a singer myself. I have actually auditioned for the Grant Park Chorus. It was the same year that I applied to become the chorus personnel manager here. To be a member of the Grant Park Chorus, it involves an audition process, and consistently I have people come in and tell me that they don't get nervous for auditions anymore, but they get nervous for this audition. This is the audition everybody wants to do really well on. Everybody wants to be part of the Grant Park Chorus. We have a special situation. We have 62 regular members. Then there are also anywhere from 120 to 150 supplemental members of the Grant Park Chorus. There are also about 12 volunteer members, and then we have an apprentice chorale, and we have anywhere from 16 to 18 members in that. The chorus sings in 6 concerts per season, and they all have to be double concerts, except for one is allowed to be a single concert so long as it's radio broadcast as well. The audio department does mic the chorus separately, and the mics actually get put in the benches here, and when the chorus is sitting up here, they sit in sections. Some choruses like to be mixed, but we sit always soprano, alto, tenor, and bass, and that's because we are projected out to the lawn, and we need to make sure that the sound guys can pull specific sections louder if they need to.
I've been working for the Grant Park Music Festival for 4 years now, and I'm in charge of all of the Festival Connect community engagement programs, which includes Young Artist Showcase, Club 615, Project Inclusion, and Classical Campers. Project Inclusion is a program for pre-professional minority musicians. It gives them an opportunity to advance in their musical careers. They work with our other programs such as Classical Campers in teaching young kids about music. Classical Campers is our day immersion arts program. Kids 6 through 12 from diverse neighborhoods all throughout Chicago come to Grant Park and they learn about the program that day, talk with the musician, and watch the orchestra perform. And for many of them, it's their first time experiencing live classical music.
I'm assisting Chris Willis, who does the audio mix for the seating bowl and the lawn, and I keep track of where we are in the score of each piece that's being performed to give Chris audio cues to make small adjustments in the sound that's being sent.
And so why does Chris need to know exactly where we are in the score?
Well, it's very important to make sure we have balances right for any solos that are coming up. For instance, here on the score, you can see a solo flute marked and an adjustment for the level for that particular microphone to be able to pick up that solo and send it out into the park.
Well, what instruments do you play that qualify you to be the score reader?
Well, I'm a pianist and I'm used to choral scores as well, so looking at multiple staves is not any big deal. It's just a matter of following the score and seeing what part of the orchestra is carrying the melody or what is happening on the page at the time.
And how often are you out here next to the sound engineer?
I'm here with Chris all the time for all rehearsals and all performances.
Every single one?
Every single one.
I've been manning this position actually since the parks first opened back in 2004. So they really haven't done a concert without me to speak of. I do a variety of different things, one of them being the Chicago Symphony. For many years I did radio broadcasts for them, and in conjunction with the CSO they also ran a record label which was called Resound, and I won actually 4 Grammys while I was doing Resound projects, which I'm very proud of. This is a Digico SD5. Like most computers, there are a million things you can do with it and a million things you don't want to do with it, and it's a bit of a learning curve. But this one is a big step up for me, at least from the old one, just in terms of the sound quality, because it's running at a much higher resolution than the old one. And it also has more controller faders. I feel I'm able to really take control of things a little better. My focus is on getting the main clusters to sound well and try to make a mix that sort of suspends the illusion that you're listening inside a concert hall. There are actually multiple systems that we control from here. First of all, there's 3 groups of speakers up in the front, a series of front fill speakers that are actually laying on the stage. Then there's speakers to fill in the back of the seating bowl. Then there's the trellis directly, and then there's another standalone system called the Lara system, which is quite a feat of engineering. One of my biggest challenges is that it's not a quiet area. We're right in the heart of downtown. There are many sirens. There are many helicopters. Our lawn crowd sort of varies. So I'm having to maintain the illusion of natural hall sound and still amplifying it enough that subtle passages can be heard and appreciated musically. That's my biggest challenge.
My favorite part of Grant Park Music Festival, I think, would have to be the music itself, like the concerts.
Hearing a world-class orchestra every day isn't half bad.
I get paid to listen to music, and I get paid to work with people who make it. What's better?
The crew that I have this year is extremely collaborative.
We have such a special chorus here.
Amazing musicians who I learn a lot from every single day.
They come from all over the country. Everybody has their own story.
It's a big team effort, and we've got a really fantastic rapport.
I would say my favorite thing about working here is just the challenge of going through so much music, so many programs in a short amount of time.
There's always something new that pops up that you have to deal with.
It's a constant flurry of activity.
My favorite thing about working at this festival is when I was a kid and I would go downtown with my parents, I would always discover something really amazing. And this park is one of those sort of wonders. Those experiences are happening here and maybe taking root in some young person. And I think that's what drives me to do this every season.